Hello, welcome back. As you can see, I've gone quite a long way with this. In fact, I've finished the entire tractor. There's a couple of little bits need prettying up yet, but basically it's all done. As you can see, I've got the lighting working, which is more than like say for my turntable, which looks a bit sporadic. There's loads of wires hanging around, but they'll all be hidden by the time I've finished. And basically the power and all the wiring will be in the trailer. I think I might have mentioned that before. So I'm going to turn this off. It's spun around. You can see the rear lights there as it's going round, and obviously the amber flashing light on the top. It is amber, but the camera doesn't seem to be picking that up. So there's the amber flashing light. I'm going to stop that turntable if I can. Just take it off for a second. Stop that, get it out of the way. There we go. Now I've hidden the wires here as much as I can to give you a demonstration. And on the front, as you can see, the marker lights on the top are all lit up. And I don't know how true it is, but that's the three in the middle are supposed to signify God bless you. The headlights are working and they're quite bright. The marker lights at the side of there are working. They're not as bright, so they don't show up as well. And the lights on the rear are working. Need a bit of touch-up paint on that one. I've damaged it. I was putting a lens in. I also need to hide a little bit of light leakage. You can see it there in there. So that needs a little plate on the top and painted, and then that will disappear. The wiring, in fact we'll take the wiring off now. If you have any questions about how that's done, all that wiring was done, don't hesitate, you know the drill. Leave the comments in the boxes below, and I'll gladly tell you as well as I can do how I've done it. These two wires here will eventually, if I can untangle them, will eventually come up, be curled. I've changed the pogo stick there to one with a shepherd's crook on it. You can just about see it there, because the one with the kit just comes up straight, so there's nowhere to hang your Susies on. It's just a straight piece of steel. So what will happen is these two wires will come up, they'll loop over the top of that shepherd's crook at the top there, and then they will be coiled to look like Susies. They'll be painted red and blue, and then they will go into the top of the trailer, which I will show you. In fact, it's easier to show you on the painting diagram, the marking diagram. And the top of the trailer, they go in there, and you can just see the two red and blue Susie, the palm connectors on the American ones, in on there. So that's where they'll go. They'll go up over the top and into there. There's a couple of modifications I've made to this that you might notice. The kit's very good. It looks really impressive, if you ask me. I think it looks really nice. But a couple of things that just dead-ended, and I don't like dead ends. The winch here, dead-ended. It was just a winch with no means of propulsion, you know. So in real life there would be two hydraulic pipes which I've put on, and they run back and back to the hydraulic tank at the side there. They come up and they join onto the hydraulic tank at the side there. There are also at the side of these Susies, here, there are two larger holes. There's no Susie supplied with the kit, and there's nothing supplied to go into those holes. But my guess is that those holes would be for hydraulic connections. This truck apparently is a hybrid. I can't find pictures of it anywhere. I actually found one. I'm telling you a lie. I found one picture of this truck, and it turns out that it's a hybrid. It's been changed into an engineering vehicle, so it's got different equipment on it than the original truck. And the original doesn't have a winch for one thing, and it wouldn't have these hydraulic outlets there. So what I've done is I've put two silicon pipes on there. You can see them quite clearly, And in real life, when you have hydraulic pipes coming from a PTO, for example, power takeoff, and you're not using them, they just blank off and hang down like that. So that's what I've tried to emulate there. I've also tried to emulate, now it's quite hard to see this bit, underneath, yeah, you can just see them there. Underneath those pipes go through the Mavis rail. This piece here is called a Mavis rail in the UK. I don't know what it's called anywhere else in the world. And then I've run those two pipes. You can just see them disappearing along there. And you can, with the human eye, you can see them running along the top of the chassis underneath that meshwork there, that grating. And I've just dead-ended them in here where they can't be seen anymore. While I've got it there as well, the hydraulics for the little crane to lift the tyre up and down, you can't even see it. Yes you can, yes you can. I've put a hydraulic pipe on that, which again dead ends in the engine compartment. I've also put in a fuel line. You can just about see it there. And as I say, it's a bit odd, you've gone to so much detail with this, and all they've done, you can see it on the top there through the grating. The fuel line, what they've done is just a little moulding on top of the fuel tank. So I've made a fuel line, fabricated a fuel line that goes through, you can see it going through under there, then it runs out along the top of the chassis down there and dead ends in the engine compartment where you can't see it, but it looks a little bit more realistic, I think. What else have I done? Apart from the lighting, which we've already mentioned, there's a light on the inside of the cab as well, although to be fair, this one doesn't really need it. There's loads of light in there. They've got big windscreens on it, and you can just about see inside the cab there. There's, as always, there's loads of photographs with this video. The mirrors I've tack glued on because I have a tendency to knock them off, and they won't go on properly until the kit's finished. And as I just proved the pudding, I've knocked that one off. So I'm going to remove it now, and that one, there we go. Now I don't have to worry about knocking them off. The cable, as I mentioned in the last video, I've made from picture wire, 1mm picture wire, and poured some silver paint on it, aluminium paint, steel paint onto it. That's done easily. Oddly, the fifth wheel on this doesn't rock around, so if you do this kit, you're going to have to make sure that you fit that flat, otherwise your trailer won't sit on it very well at all. All the transfers are on. Most of them are very tiny. As you can see, there's some really tiny ones here, tyre pressure and the truck voltage. For some unknown reason, a few of them are misspelt, and it says diesel only, but it's I can't remember exactly what it says now. OZL instead of diesel only. Who knows? Doesn't really matter because the print on them is very tiny. It's only an illustration, isn't it? A couple of transfers on the windscreen. Yeah, you can just about see them with the driver and the second man's name on there. Underneath, I put all the wiring in underneath there. Can I get a picture of that? Yeah, all the wiring is underneath on there and fits in there really quite neatly. As I say, these two wires run right the way along the chassis. You can't see them, they look perfectly natural, and come up through the holes for the Susies, and then we'll go into the trailer where the batteries are going to live, and the power supply is going to distribute around the rest of the truck. What else can I tell you? Not a lot really. I'm going to weather it slightly. I'm going to put some weathering on it. I've sanded the tyres a little bit, did that with crushed pastels. There's a video knocking around on the site, on the channel, for you to find out where I got the crushed pastels for, and basically it's just a case of crushing them. I then painted the wheel, the tyre, with PVA adhesive, about a 50-50 mix of PVA and water, painted the entire tyre with it, put a little pile of pastel, ground up pastel, and rolled the tyre through it. When it's dry, scrape off the excess, and I think that looks quite realistic, to be fair. It doesn't look too bad at all. This kit, I've never done it before, but I'm going to set this one on a diorama. So what I'm going to do is a piece of 3/4 inch ply about so wide, so 1.5 times the width of the kit, and rockery sand and make it look a bit like a desert if I can. Yet to be seen. One of the other things that I've done, this engine compartment here, it is an 8V71 engine with an automatic gearbox on the back, and there's not a lot of detail on it, but to be fair, there's not really much point in putting a lot of detail on it because you can't see it. So what I've done is, unfortunately, I glued the whole of the radiator of the engine cover together, which is on this section here on 14, and I glued the whole thing together all the way along, which means that you glue the side panels to the radiator and the top panel to the radiator and the side panels. If you then want to take the cover off, as you can clearly see from there, it's not going to come out of there easily. It's hiding all the wiring going down on the inside of that air vent, and it's just going to create a mess. So what I did was, before I glued it on, before I fixed it to the kit, I took my trusty old Dremel and a saw blade on it and cut the top off. So I recut this piece off. That meant that there was a saw cut right the way along the top here, and what I did was I stuck a little bit of 0.5mm styrene along the top and then painted it, and to be fair, you wouldn't know it was there. That will then fit nicely on the top until you decide you want to take it off again, and that looks fine. I think it looks fine anyway. So that's what it looks like when it's all put together again. And that is about it. There's not really much to it. It's a lot of work. It's taken me a month to do that, and a lot of it was to be fair, was messing around with bits of wire. One disaster when I plugged the wrong size power supply into it and blew all the LEDs and had to take them all out, which was no mean feat on the ones at the top, certainly the marker lights at the top, and they're ever so tiny. Take them out and redo it all, but that's part of the game, isn't it? I think it looks really quite good. It's quite an impressive truck. As I say, it's a hybrid. It's difficult to find any photographs, let alone videos of this truck. And I did find one, and this is pretty close to it. But what Trumpeter have done as well, they've made it even more of a hybrid by building this truck on a chassis for something else. And I think they'd built it off a wrecker, to be honest. So the chassis is for a wrecker, and they've just altered it here and there. And I think it's come out really quite well. You might remember I've put a plate on to hide one of the holes in the side, and that's the plate there. If you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't know it was there. It's as simple as that, isn't it? Underneath it, if you're interested, everything's done underneath there, and again, there's not a lot to it. It's simple enough. For some reason, I've got 2 fuel tanks on your sprues. You'll find that you've got a spare fuel tank, and I would guess that would have gone on this side here. Other than that, I think that's about it. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the boxes below, and it would be great if you could like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Ta-da!